Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to This Week in Rideshare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Hoffa. It is Friday, June 27th, and this week, new pricing punishes drivers, Tesla's bumpy start, and Travis is back. Legal Rideshare breaks it down. And from Legal Rideshare, I'm joined by the co-founder and lead attorney, Bryant Greening. Bryant, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Jared. Good to be back. We took a week off, and now here we are, refreshed and ready to go.
We are definitely refreshed, nice and toasty in Chicago. The East Coast and Midwest is under, what's it called, a heat dome? Is that what they're calling it?
You know what? It's perfect weather to take an Uber somewhere and cozy up and, and
And
have a
go
couple.
drink
Yeah.
a pina colada, or my favorite, a painkiller, or, alcoholic, non-alcoholic, whatever you choose. But they are delicious, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, we're going to jump into it.
Go
There,
get one, kid. Yeah.
what's that? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go get one, kids. Yeah.
Yeah, go get kids as long as you're 21 plus. So yes. Yeah, so man, we have some wild stories today. I'm loving all these. The first one, we're going to jump right in. This is really not a shock to a lot of people here, but pretty fascinating anyways. Uber's new dynamic pricing is hurting drivers. Now, this is from The Guardian, and they reported, quote, research by academics at New York's Columbia Business School have concluded that Silicon Valley company had implemented, quote, algorithmic price discrimination that has raised rider fares and cut driver pay on billions of trips systematically, selectively, and opaquely. The Columbia paper, which focused on 24,000 trips made by a single U.S. Uber driver, concluded that the introduction of the new algorithm had allowed Uber to significantly increase its take rate, which is the percent of rider fares net of driver pay captured by the company, which was from about 32% at the start of the upfront pricing to upwards of 42% by the end of 2024. Last week's University of Oxford research found that since the launch of this dynamic pricing, Uber's median take per UK driver had increased from 25 to 29%, and on some trips is over 50%. So wild stuff, ton of data here. This is no longer, we think that they're eating into the driver's pockets. This is a watershed moment. It's happening, and they are gutting the driver's profits.
I am absolutely shocked. Uber did something that hurts drivers, hurts customers, and pads its own pockets. I cannot believe this is happening. No, we've been hearing this anecdotally forever, that pay is getting worse, that fares are getting more expensive for passengers. You see times when passengers compare what they're paying with the driver. They each show each other their phone, and you see that the driver's making almost nothing in comparison to the passenger's fare. It's unbelievable that this is now, proven to be taking place. But the fact of the matter is, we've been hearing about this for years, and now there's data to support it. All I can say is, once there's data, once the numbers are actually laid out the way that they are, that gives that lays the groundwork for somebody to take action, whether it's a class action, whether the states get involved and set out specific guidelines for what the companies are allowed to take in terms of a percentage, how much of the fare needs to go to the driver. This data is really important because it gives people the information that they need to try to demand change. But the fact that this is happening is zero surprise. The fact that Uber is getting greedier and greedier is zero surprise, and it's just a matter of what are we going to do from here.
Yeah, I mean, this is really, I wouldn't even say alarming. We already knew this was going to happen, but I think this is a really interesting article that dives into. We also talk about the data, and they always hide the data, or they say, oh, that's a few people's, examples of a ride. I mean, the Columbia paper said it focused on 24,000 trips by one Uber driver. So there's two things there. One, they can't argue that, well, it's just a general and every driver is different. They also can't argue that, oh, it's a small study. So 24,000 trips by one driver is a serious study focusing really on the patterns. So you can argue as much as you want about, oh, they don't have the data that we have. They got a lot of damn data. I mean, that is a lot of trips that they are filing from one driver.
Right.
And it's, this is from what I understand from this article, this is two different studies. And the other thing that's really kind of wild about this, if you're following this story, it really depends on what side you're on. If you're a driver or even a passenger, a lot of times these stories online are focused on, hey, it's ripping off drivers, and it's more expensive for passengers. If you are an investor in Uber, the articles are touting this as Uber finally found a way to make money, and this is their way to profitability. So it really shows two versions of the same company and what people want out of it. And
Right.
obviously, we're fighting for the riders and the drivers, so we know what side we're on this.
Yeah, what ultimately I think it's going to depend on what steps are taken. If somebody files a class action lawsuit or somebody alleges that there's some, violation of employment law or consumer rights laws, or there's a variety of ways they could go. If this gets challenged and overturned, it's going to be really bad for Uber because, like you alluded to, they found a way to make money, and it's by screwing everybody. And if they can't do that, then they're back to square one where, well, I mean, it's a great service, but it's not really profitable. So the entire future of the company really depends on what people do in response to this type of data. If everybody just sits on their hands and says, oh, well, the company's going to do what the company's going to do, well, Uber's investors are going to be quite happy and the company's going to make a ton of money. But if there's something that rocks this boat and challenges the status quo, it could be extremely detrimental to the future.
Yeah, 100%. And this is, we'll see how this goes. Usually these reports, these stories come out, they kind of trickle for the next couple of days, and then we usually see Uber's response or the city or state's response. Don't know yet because this just came out. But you're right, and we will see. Are people going to say, "Hey, this is fine," or are they going to step up and do something? We don't know yet, but we shall see. Moving on to the next story this week, which I hate to say, "I told you so," but we definitely told you so. Tesla's robotaxis are off to a bumpy start, and this is from The Verge, and they reported, quote, "Some of these issues are relatively minor, like failing to recognize a reversing UPS truck while trying to pull into a parking space or driving over a curb. Others are more worrisome, like briefly driving on the wrong side of the road or dropping passengers off in the middle of a busy intersection. Several incidents involve phantom braking, in which the vehicle stops suddenly for seemingly no reason. Tesla's camera-only perceptive system has long had problems with this sort of phantom braking, appearing to misinterpret shadows, road markings, or other factors, which triggers the vehicle's automatic emergency braking. The Reddit list includes 3 incidents of phantom braking. Now, the interesting thing about this is it states in this article, keep in mind that these are incidents that have cropped up among a small fleet of only 10 to 20 vehicles in just 3 days of semi-public availability. Musk had said he wants thousands of vehicles on the road within months and perhaps, quote, 1 million by the end of the year. Imagine what that list looks like. Oh boy. So, we have been talking about this, saying the sky is falling for a year. And man, I'll tell you, it did not disappoint.
No, it did not disappoint. This is really worrisome. The fact that we're dealing with such a small fleet and that we have so many issues right off the bat tells us exactly what we need to know, which is that these vehicles are not ready for prime time. This was a rushed out process. They didn't go through the necessary testing. The cars are not adequately vetted to handle the public roads. They're not adequately vetted to ensure that the people inside the car and outside the car are safe. This is just a classic example of Musk and others like him rushing to market to try to make a ton of money and there's a ton of money to be made here. And they're putting their profits in front of public safety. All of these instances that are described in this list are worrisome. I know that the article said some of them are relatively minor, like not tracking a backing up truck or things of that nature. people can get very severely injured in those sorts of situations. So, yes, driving on the wrong side of the road, that cannot happen. People are going to get killed, but not recognizing fixed objects or objects that are moving on the roadway, things that human drivers are trained and skilled to do. Um, as long as the human driver is safer, then the human driver should be on the road and not the robot. I am not anti-tech. I am not blind to the fact that these vehicles, the robo-taxi type vehicles are the future, but they have to be ready and they have to be safe. And until they are, they need to be put out in the desert to learn, what to look for and set up makeshift cities and, go through all of these different tests to make them ready for the prime time. And we're seeing right now that these 10 to 20 vehicles are not. And if there were a million of these vehicles, I cannot imagine the catastrophe that we'd be talking about.
Yeah, and what's crazy about this article too, and this is a really good point, and we actually brought this up on the show I think 2 weeks ago, but the article also states that also the only way that we know about any of these incidents is because the customers are documenting their rides and posting them on social media. Texas does not require any incident reporting or data sharing from Tesla. So I actually did a driving me crazy segment on our on TikTok and Instagram about this, and we talked about this that Texas is pretty hands off on robotaxis and data or any permits or any regulations, and so we only know what people are posting. We actually don't even know how bad it really is. We only know the few people that we caught online.
Right. No, and look, I understand if Texas decides that they want to put these cars on their roads, then that's, Texas prerogative. I think it's a mistake, but Texas is going to do what Texas is going to do. How do you not collect data? How do you not do some, data collection to make sure that this program that you've put the green light on is helping the community, is safe for the community? If you were going to have them on the road for some period of time, like you might as well be collecting information to decide whether this is something that you want to expand or something that needs to be pulled back until corrections are made. The state is not going to have any idea as to whether this was a successful pilot without requiring that information. So I don't understand it from the government's perspective. If you're going to allow it, okay, that's fine, but at least have checks on the system so that people can understand what they're signing up for. And perhaps the public can speak out then. If there's data that the government collects and says, hey, there were 10,000 of these cars and only 4 incidents, well, let's go. I mean, that sounds like a successful program. Alternatively, if there's 10 to 20 of these cars and there's an issue every other ride, like I'm not sure that's something that I want in my neighborhood. So I think it's a massive mistake on the government side to just let the corporations run wild.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you can pretty much predict that Tesla and Elon's going to double down on this and go. Actually, it proves that it's great, and we're going to have 100 on the road next week. I guarantee it. So this is just the beginning of these stories. I cannot, I guess brace for what we're going to see next. But I doubt they're going to ever retreat. That's not something Elon typically ever does with his companies. And so I don't think this is going to be any different, to be honest.
Agreed.
Moving on to the final story, I feel like we are in reverso world, or maybe we're back in 2014. I don't know. But Travis is returning to Uber, sort of. This is from the New York Times, and they reported, quote, Uber is in talks with Travis Kalanick, I think is how you pronounce his last name, the ride-hailing company's co-founder, who was ousted in a boardroom coup 8 years ago this month to help fund his acquisition of the U.S. Subsidiary of a Chinese autonomous vehicle company. 2 people with knowledge of the matter said. The company is known as Pony.ai. It was founded in Silicon Valley in 2016, but has its main presence in China and has permits to operate robotaxis and trucks in the U.S. and China. If the deal goes through, Travis will remain at his day job running Cloud Kitchens, the virtual restaurant startup that he founded after leaving Uber in 2017. But he would also work more closely with Dara, who took over his job after he left. So, man, what a wild twist of events this is.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things where you never thought Travis was ever going to really be gone from the
Right.
company. Fingerprints are all over it. The way that they operate, Dara's come in and changed the culture a bit. It is run more like a traditional company now. Dar's a bit more of a traditional CEO, but Uber's always done what Uber wants to do. Uber, runs rogue, and um, they always push the envelope and, as we've said, ask for forgiveness later. And I think that's Travis's mindset. So it's interesting to see that he's being brought back into the fold potentially. It'll be also interesting to see how those two men interact, with very different mindsets, very different styles. But at the end of the day, this company is Travis's baby. And, I guess I I don't know Travis, but on a personal level, I guess I'm happy for him that he gets to put his foot back in here because I know that it was really hard when he was forced out. So I'm not shedding any tears for Travis Kalanick, but I do think that it's kind of a interesting story to see him back, and I know it's probably something that he would have wanted.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's be real. Investors love rock star CEOs, right? Because Dara's a safe guy. You can get your 10 to 20% growth year over year, but man, you get Travis in there, and it's like betting on the underdog, the horse, the wild one, and it's funny because I've seen a few articles over the years, and usually they're financial articles, kind of hinting that yeah, Dara's doing a good job, and it's looking kind of stable. But man, remember when Travis was there? Like you can almost see the nostalgia in the report where they're
Yeah.
hoping for that big explosion, where that big, raising money, festival, where all of a sudden the valuation blows through the roof, and that's what this feels like. This feels like Uber's playing the safe bet with, the AV and working with Waymo. But we all know Travis wouldn't have done that. I think he would have said, "No, we're going to war, and we're gonna do our own thing."
Right.
And I think someone in the company probably said, we need a plan B, and plan B is let's get the animal back. Let's get the animal out of the cage and bring him back in the company.
Well, they're going both routes now. They've got the
Yep.
safe play. They can go the traditional business route, make their investors the money that they expect, but then, like you said, have something else going on where maybe, lightning catches and all this, or lightning strikes, and we've, got a whole new side of the company that just blows up. And I don't know. Well, I think that overall Uber has done better moving on from Travis. I think that they were at real risk of not becoming a stable company and a profitable company because of a lot of the risks that Travis was willing to take. He was great at the start to get the company going, to make that hockey stick kind of line go up at the beginning. But once push came to shove, and it needed to be run like a grown-up company, grown-up public company, he wasn't the one. So I think Dara handling the steering wheel is smart right now, but maybe
Yeah.
there's something that Travis can do from the sidecar to um, put gas on the fire.
Yeah, and I have a good feeling that he's going to give it his all. This actually, if you have any interest in the history of tech, this feels very deja vu to when Steve was ousted from Apple, and then they brought Steve back. And what people don't know is they thought that the history. If you don't know it, Steve was kicked out from Apple, and then in '97 they brought him back, but they didn't bring him back to Apple. They bought out his company called Next, and so this feels very deja vu with what they're doing with Travis, where they kind of need that hero to come in and blow it out of the water. So we'll see what he does. But that is our stories for this week. But as always, Brian, I'll give you the final say before we head into the weekend.
Yeah, just always remind everybody that if you are injured in an accident or find yourself in an accident on the job, please reach out to us for a free legal consultation. LegalRideshare.com has all of our contact information. We're always available to help. We'll help make the insurance claim, help you put money in your pocket for things like medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, any other damages that you sustain. So please don't hesitate. Cases don't get better with time, and our lawyers are always available to help. LegalRideshare.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. And as I like to say, that is the end of This Week in Rideshare. See you next week.